There's always some sacrifice that comes when we're doing it for an ego purpose. When we're doing it for what's in alignment with us, there's never a sacrifice. That's why I can help people shave so much time, like literally cut up to half their work week, because they're no longer chasing the things that ego's telling them to do, and they're driven by something completely different.
Welcome to the Making Sales Social podcast, featuring the top voices in sales, marketing, and business. Join Brynne Tillman and me, Bob Woods, as we each bring you the best tips and strategies our guests are teaching their clients, so you can leverage them for your own virtual and social selling. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Making Sales Social. I'm your host, Brynne Tillman, and I am so excited to introduce Alaina Schwartz, an international speaker, best-selling author, and elite performance coach. Alaina is passionate about helping high achievers 2 to 3 times their income and impact while working 20 to 30 hours less. That's crazy. With over 25 years of experience, she uses innovative tools to facilitate profound personal and professional transformations, enabling her clients to align their actions with their true purpose. Today, Alaina will share her insights on how to achieve sustainable 7+ figure success without the overwhelm. Alaina, welcome to the program.
So delighted to be here with you, Brynne.
Oh, so excited. There's a little selfishness in this because I'm so excited to learn a lot of what you talk about. But before we jump into your genius, we ask all of our guests the same first question, which is, what does making sales social mean to you?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. Sales social means to me, like so many people, I use LinkedIn as my primary social media platform. And when you deal with a lot of people on LinkedIn, as I do, so many people are very transactional, right? So the idea of sales social to me means relational rather than
I
transactional.
love
So
that.
I am interested in creating genuine relationships with people, not pitching or selling. What ends up coming, sales that come from a level of trust of me being authentic and in that social space with people. And because of that, I have people, like, I cannot tell you how many people a week say to me, I never get on a call with anybody from LinkedIn, but I got on a call with you. And it's because of my approach to being relational first.
I love that. And I'm sure that's going to come out through a lot of our conversation today. One of the things that really drew me in when I was kind of learning a little bit more about you before today's call is you talk a lot about working smarter instead of harder. Can you share some practical strategies that your clients have found most effective in achieving that?
Yeah, one of the things I will say is that I only work with high achievers. They're at 6 figures, 10K a month to, 300K a month is where my clients are at, right? And in the process of that, what they tend to experience is a mental paradigm, a mindset paradigm that says, for me to create the success I want, I have to work harder, right? So
Yeah,
there's a belief.
the whole hustle.
Hustle, the whole hustle and grind mentality, right? That's the only way to break through to next level income is by working harder. And most of my clients are out of hours and they're out of bandwidth besides, right?
Mhm.
So the first paradigm shift is that understanding that it is not the hustling more, it is not the time management tools, it's not the productivity hacks that are actually going to get you to that place. Because if you implement them, you can delegate, you can hire more team. I'm not saying that those things can't be effective, but typically what happens is you free up a bunch of time only to fill it with other busyness again,
Mhm.
right? And so
Yeah.
yes. So you have to get to the root of the problem first. And the root of the problem is the mindset shift around hard work and what's possible with less hours. And once people remove those self-sabotaging patterns out of the way, they're able to cut up to half, literally half of their work week without losing a dime and in fact making a lot of more money.
Wow. Wow. Now, I read somewhere that the shifts that you make are at like the DNA level, like that core level. Talk a little bit about these shifts and how that contributes to their success.
Yeah, I'll talk specifically about a client named Tim that I have. So Tim is a wealth manager, right? And when he started working with me, he was making 25K a month, let's say. He was working about 55 hours a week, and he was in the hustle and grind mentality. And when we took a deeper dive into the patterns that were running him, he came from a very blue collar, hardworking family. And he had a lot of intergenerational patterns at a DNA level around what it meant to like where his value came, right? His value came through the hard work. That's the thing that his parents and his aunt, like extended family, that's all they were about is you got to work really hard. His worth came from working really hard. So we cleared a lot of those patterns at an intergenerational level, which is at a DNA level, right? And in
Yeah.
the process, by month 3, he went from 55 hours to 30 hours, and he was making 50. That month was a 50K month. Months 4, 5, and 6 were 100K months. But he didn't add any additional hours. And he actually even said that he took his very first vacation ever because he was very high up in corporate before he, went into his own business. He took his very first vacation without his laptop. Like that's huge, right? Like the
Wow.
ability to actually untether from your business for a hot minute and actually have it see it grow exponentially because of it.
That's very impactful, and how much of this is recognizing that core limiting belief or whatever that is to actually implementing what you're teaching?
Yeah. So the recognition is the first step. I love that question because the recognition, awareness is always the first step, but awareness alone doesn't make change, right? So, what makes like information is a dime a dozen. And you can get any information you want on the internet anywhere. The difference between transformation is application. Right. And so to be able to create transformation, it means you have to understand how certain principles apply to you because what ends up happening, like this client that I mentioned, Tim, what ends up happening is that he knew then, once we helped clear all the stuff out of the way, he knew the exact right strategies to use. He knew the exact right offerings to implement in his business because he no longer had the resistance that was keeping him from like an exponential leap. And so that's what I experience a lot with the clients I work with is they know exactly what to do now because all the stuff that was creating static for them is no longer creating static and they have like unbelievable clarity and then the confidence to go with it.
So with Tim, how did you identify? Because, well, you talked about aligning business with purpose, right? Or you talk a lot about that. So how do you identify? I'm a wealth manager. I came out of corporate. Now I'm, I like doing what I'm doing, but how do you align that with true purpose? And then how does that influence the productivity versus the hustle?
Yeah. Everybody has a purpose in life. Everybody has. Our purposes don't change, but the way in which we express our purpose may change. Right? So I'll call it a life purpose expression. So the way we express that purpose may change. So we have the ability to access, let's call it our intuition, that all knowing sort of part of us. We have the ability to access that on demand and use it as a GPS guidance system in our businesses. And that's really what I teach my clients to do is how to access that GPS guidance system so they're always knowing what to be doing. Right. So we're not throwing spaghetti against the wall, spending money on marketing that doesn't actually align with our businesses, et cetera. Right. That we're in alignment. Everything that we're doing is moving forward in alignment. And what that does is it creates a level of ease and flow. And when
Mm,
you start having ease and flow internally, as within, so without. So as you start having ease within internally, it creates a level of ease externally in everything that we're doing. And so it no longer requires that we're constantly pushing the boulder up the hill or swimming upstream to create what we want. We get to flow downstream, ride the
oh,
momentum downhill.
that's I love that. It's interesting because if you ask me, like, what is my purpose?
Mhm.
I have a personal purpose and a professional purpose that are very, very, very different, right? But all of it kind of comes to making an impact.
Mhm.
So it seems, when you talk about high achievers, I guess, how much of that is having this personal impact? Or could it be I just want to get rich, or I just want to,
It
you know,
could.
grow
Yeah,
a business that sells?
yeah. I
Yeah.
don't tend to work with the types of clients who are only interested in getting rich. Like, I work with purpose-driven people.
Okay, fair.
They're here to change the world in some way, and no matter whether they're into, like, recruiting or, marketing or whatever, or wealth management, it doesn't matter. They're here to change the world in some way, right? They're here to make that impact. Like, if I talked about my purpose, which is on a both personal and professional level, it's really about helping people remember who they are. Like, I'm an elite performance coach. I help people perform at much higher levels, right? High performance. That's because they remember who they are, and they're no longer chasing their worth through their accomplishments. Right? They disconnect the idea
Yeah.
that, oh, I need to achieve more because it makes me more, to I need to achieve more because it's naturally who I am, and this is my purpose in life to fulfill.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. How much of this is checking ego?
Oh, it's all about checking ego. Yeah, because when our egos lead, what ends up happening is there's always a sacrifice of something for success. We're sacrificing our relationships, our health, or our time. Right? So there's always some sacrifice that comes when we're doing it for an ego purpose. When we're doing it for what's in alignment with us, there's never a sacrifice. That's why I can help people shave so much time, like literally cut up to half their work week, because they're no longer chasing the things that ego's telling them to do, and they're driven by something completely different.
Wow. All right, I'm gonna be vulnerable for a second because this is so cool. And I just hit I'm going, okay, so what's the broken DNA strand for me? Right? Like, what is it? And I'm dyslexic. I read very late, like third grade, and I was the dumb kid. And my mother was always confused at why I was so dumb. She's like, she doesn't seem dumb, but she's so dumb. So the vulnerability, the thing is, when I'm out in the world, I want everybody to think I'm smart.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's like I kind of putting words around that is so interesting, right? So how do you break down that DNA, or how do you fix that broken DNA?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
That's
what
a really awesome question, and I can say I really understand what you're experiencing because my son is now 17, almost 18, and he's dyslexic. And
hard.
it was up until 5th grade. Actually, it started really in 5th grade, where he started to feel so stupid and not even being able to read a menu in a restaurant when all his friends could. The shame that he felt from that
Mhm.
is incredible. And they actually say, and I don't want to get too off topic, but they actually say with dyslexics that it's almost the equivalent of incest in terms of the amount of shame that they experience, right?
Wow.
So because you have all of that shame from feeling stupid and people telling you basically, if you just applied yourself a little more, then
Right.
you
You just worked
finally get
harder.
it. You didn't work hard enough, right? So now it's set yourself up. The paradigm that you see life through is, now I have to prove how smart I am all the time. And it's clear how smart you are. I can have a conversation with you and know that, right? But the thing is everything you do now has the backstory of driving you towards success to prove how smart you are. Right.
That's true. It's not even about how much money I make or how
Right. It's to
it's
how
that
smart you
people
are.
think I'm smart. That's so
Right. Right.
funny.
And so money is a milestone that shows how smart you are. It's
Yes,
not for the money itself. It's a milestone that says, oh my God, look how smart Brynne is, because look how much she's accomplished. So she
right.
has to be
Some
smart to
people
have
couldn't
accomplished.
make that money.
Exactly, exactly. So, so essentially, what I teach people to do is to go into so I can do it for them, but I like to teach them how to do it so they're not dependent on me, right? I teach them how to fish, not just give them the fish. It's both and. But ultimately, you can go into your own subconscious mind and clear that pattern so that it doesn't keep showing up everywhere for you, so that you're actually achieving because of the feeling of expansion and growth, which is our natural tendency on this planet. Everything's moving towards expansion and growth. So you're moving in natural harmony with you, rather than the ego driving your success for a particular reason to prove yourself.
Wow. That's amazing. So you're working with high achieving executives, entrepreneurs,
Small business owners.
small business owners. Oh, not just okay,
I
great.
don't work with executives, just small business owners. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Boy, we'll have to talk. I have so many of them, right? Like but and so many that are hustlers, right? That are out there working really hard.
Yep.
And you know, again, this is kind of across the board. Business development is harder now than it has ever been, right?
That's true. Yes,
It's the uncertainty, the change in AI, the change in accessibility to insights where buyers don't have to talk to sellers all the time, like they can do
mhm,
so much of that research on their own. And the more they can do on their own, the later in the sales process we're coming in. And by that point, they may have been influenced by other people that had better content out there. Like it's shifted and it's
mhm.
hard. So the what across the board, what I'm hearing from the high achieving small business owners is I used to get a ton of inbound business that's dried up. I used like that. Those are the things that I'm hearing. How much of that can be changed with a shift in mindset, and how much is just this is just the way it is right now?
Okay. I don't believe anything just the way it is. I don't believe that any economy, any president, any, global pandemic, like there's always people prospering no matter what the climate is, right? There's always people prospering and sometimes prospering more because they're able to pivot their businesses in the face of that uncertainty. So what I believe is that most people believe that's an issue. Like I used to hear all the time, January is one of the hardest months to make sales because everybody spent all, I'm a high ticket coach. Like nobody wants to spend money in January after December and they spent all that money for the holidays, right? Januaries have always been one of my biggest months. So
Right.
right? So I don't believe that anything anybody says about what's going on. Now, yes, I'm not saying that what you said about business and people being more savvy and being overpitched and sold to and whatever where they come in the cycle that may not be an issue. Of course that may be an issue, but I feel like the mindset about it is the far bigger issue because my clients are all prospering regardless of the climate.
I love hearing that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes.
So,
They're
what
having their best months ever regardless of the climate.
that's awesome. So if you could give one tip to the business owners listening right now going, I made 3 years ago, I made a half $500,000. 2 years ago, I made 250,000. Last year, I made 125, and I'm really nervous about this year because I'm hearing that, right? Like people that made $500,000 years are down, to 20%, 30% of what they were doing a few years back. So what is the one thing that you would say would get them started in readjusting the way that they're thinking?
I would say, first of all, get help. Really
Fair.
get support,
That's
right?
fair.
Okay, now past that, here's the thing that happens. I was saying this to a client, on Monday, as a matter of fact, in my group program, in my group call. One of
Mm.
my clients was saying that about 1 month, that her last month was a relatively low month for her, and she said for the first time ever that she wasn't thinking, "There's something wrong with me because my numbers were lower." And I was talking about the identification of what starts to happen. We start to pay attention to the evidence and we think that that's the truth, right? So the evidence is saying the market is harder. The evidence is saying I'm having lower income months. And now the doubt creeps in. Right? The
Mhm.
fear creeps in because of that. And what we're giving more attention and energy to is the doubt and the fear rather than the truth. And when we give attention to the truth and focus on what's really true, which is I have a desire for it. If I have a desire, the law of polarity, like it's a universal law that basically says if you have a question, the answer is already here. If you have an up, there's a down. If you have a left, there's a right, right? It says it's already here. So if we have a desire for something, we can't have the desire for it unless the way to make it happen is already here. That
Mm.
means if you have a desire for $1 million business, if you have a desire for a $500,000 business, the way to make it happen is already here. You're just not aligned with it yet. You just don't have awareness of it yet. Right?
Oh, gosh, that's awesome.
So when you start, I like to liken, have you heard the term like frequency, like our frequency, the energy? Okay.
Yes.
So frequency doesn't exist on a scale of 1 to 10, but if it did, and you could describe it as a 10-story building, when you walk into the ground floor and you look out the windows, you see a certain level of possibility and opportunity. When you take an elevator to the 10th floor, you see vaster levels of opportunity, expansive, right? It was there all along. You just didn't have the awareness to see it. Because what are we doing? We're looking narrow-minded at what the evidence is telling us. The evidence is saying it's not working. Clients aren't coming in. Things are slower. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? The minute
It's on the 10th floor.
the 10th floor, the minute we're asking, where is it? Where are they? Where are the clients? We're basically saying, I don't believe they're here, and we're repelling them away from us to begin with.
Yeah, we do create what we fear the most. That is something that, I've
Fulfilling
learned.
prophecy.
Yeah, right. Wherever we're putting the energy is what we're going to get.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So this was great. I could talk to you all day. I really love this. But before we wrap up, is there a question I should have asked you that I didn't?
I feel like the questions you ask were fabulous. The only thing I might ask is it really true? Because this is the belief leap that I hear. Is it really true that I could cut my hours and still make more money?
Okay, so is it really true?
It's absolutely true, Brynne. It's absolutely true. Like literally, I have a client, she's an executive coach. And when she first started, she was charging $25,000 a year for her services, working with mid-level and C-suite. She then went to, within 3 months, we helped her go to $75,000 a year. She got 7 new clients at that rate and then kept going. She's now charging $120,000 a year for her services and only works with C-suite of multinationals. When she first started working with me, because she works in all time zones, she was working 100 hours a week, like no lie, 16-hour days during the week, 10 hours every day on the weekend. And I kept saying to her, when you're tired enough, that will shift. When you're tired enough. And she didn't believe me. She now works 60 hours. She's the only client that I have that works more than 40 hours a week. But that's like
Half of what she was working. So.
Right, right. So for her, it's not like that big. For me, it's still a big deal. I'm like, no, I want to keep going. And she's like, no, I can deal with 60 hours. I was like, why would anybody ever want to work 60 hours? I don't understand it. But she still has the belief that she has to work that hard to be able to keep up with the level of clients that she has, right? But even still, 40 hours a week, that's like incredible what she was able to cut and make 5 times more money.
Absolutely. That is fantastic. I love that.
So yes,
I'm
it's
glad I
possible.
didn't ask you that question. That's a great one. I love that. My goodness, this was absolutely fabulous. And I am sure that we have listeners at the edge of their seats saying, okay, how do I get in touch with Alaina?
So the best way to get in touch with me is actually, I don't handle my own social media. So contacting me on social media means you'll talk to my team, not me.
Okay.
If you really want to get a hold of me, then I suggest you grab my freebie. I have a free PDF guide that's 3 ways to cut your work week in half while making the same or more money, right? And that's at www.alainaschwartz.com/time.
Oh,
Right.
that's
And
great.
when you grab that and then respond to those messages, you'll get me directly. Like I'm the only person who responds to my email. So you will get me directly. Like I can then communicate with you. And then if you want to book a call from there and it feels like we might be a match to see if, how we'd continue to chat, happy to do that too.
This was fantastic. I really had a lot of fun, and I am so thankful for the things I learned today. I know that you've
So
helped
delighted, Brynne.
many folks. And so when everyone listening is out and about, don't forget to make your sales social.
Don't miss an episode. Visit socialsaleslink.com/podcast. Leave a review down below. Tell us what you think, what you learned, and what you want to hear from us next. Register for free resources at linkedinlibrary.com. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play. Visit our website, socialsaleslink.com, for more information.